Welcome back to Real Crime Stories, the podcast where we bring you crime stories from around the world. Today, we look into the story of Tiane Brown, a 33-year-old law student and single mother of three who was murdered in Detroit, Michigan, in October 2013. Tiane disappeared on October 28 after dropping her daughters off at her mother's house before heading to class. That night, she never returned to pick them up, and repeated calls to her phone went unanswered. 2 days later, her SUV was discovered in an abandoned lot. Inside the vehicle, police found Tiane's body. 13 years later, her killer has never been caught, and her family is still searching for justice. Who killed Tiane Brown, and why? Tiane Brown worked relentlessly to build a life of success for herself and her daughters. As the mother of three young girls, she embodied determination and resilience. She had everything going for her, yet in 2013, someone chose to take her life, robbing her children of their mother and devastating her family. More than a decade later, the pain remains and justice has yet to be served. Tiane was born on December 31, 1979 in Southfield, Michigan, and was raised in Detroit by her mother, Cheryl. From a young age, Tiane was described as ambitious, inquisitive, and gifted. She attended St. Scholastica Catholic School, and Cheryl later recalled telling her daughter to reach for the sky, and wherever the stars fall, that's where you'll end up. Carried those words with her throughout her life. She graduated with honors from Renaissance High School in 1997 and went on to attend Wayne State University, majoring in biological science. After graduating, Tiane married a man named Toriano, and together they had two daughters. Though the marriage eventually ended in divorce, Tiane remained focused on her goals and on providing the best life possible for her children. Despite the challenges of being a single mother, Tiane continued to push forward. She earned an MBA and a master's degree in biomedical engineering, stacking complex degrees at different times, while still in her 20s. Any one of these accomplishments would have set her apart, but Tiane refused to stop. She credited her success to her mother's unwavering encouragement and support. Balancing school, work, and motherhood, Tiane worked as an emergency technician at Beaumont Hospital before becoming a biomedical engineer at General Sterling. Still, her ambitions extended beyond personal success. After the murder of her cousin at age 25, Tiane became deeply affected by the violence in Detroit and felt compelled to give back. She began volunteering with a nonprofit called Developing Kids, eventually rising from mentor to advisory board member, and later serving as board president in 2010. After earning 3 advanced degrees, Tiane made the bold decision to return to school once again, this time to pursue law. She enrolled in Wayne State's law program, worked as a law clerk at a patent law firm, and focused on intellectual property law. While in law school, she remained active on campus, joining the Black Student Law Association and the Intellectual Property Association. In 2009, she welcomed her third daughter. By the fall of 2013, Tiane was in her final year of law school. Life was busy but good. Her mother often watched the girls while she attended class, and Cheryl had already begun planning for Tiane's graduation, unaware that her daughter's life would soon be taken before she could cross that stage. On October 28, 2013, Tiane dropped her daughters off at her mother, Cheryl's, home in the Detroit suburb of West Bloomfield so she could attend class. This was routine, and nothing about the day felt unusual, except that Tiane was running late. In the rush, she forgot to say goodbye to her girls. According to Nina, Tiane's oldest daughter, her mother always answered the phone, even when she was on campus. That evening, Nina tried calling her mom, but there was no answer. She called again and again, still nothing. The unanswered calls immediately worried her. Even at just 14 years old, Nina knew something was wrong. Her mother would never ignore her calls. As the night stretched on, Nina tried reaching Tiane through Facebook, but her messages went unanswered. By 2 a.m., she was in a full-blown panic. Tiane hadn't come back to pick them up, and there had been no response by phone or online. That's when Nina woke her grandmother and told her she couldn't get in contact with her mom. Cheryl immediately got up and drove to Tiane's townhouse, thinking maybe she had gone home and fallen asleep. But when she arrived, there was no sign of her daughter. It was nearly 3 a.m., and Cheryl could think of only one other place Tiane might be: Wayne State University. She drove to campus and began searching the parking lots for Tiane's SUV, a Chevy Trailblazer with vanity plates bearing her name. The car wasn't there. Cheryl then went inside the library, searching floor by floor, checking study rooms and conference spaces. She later recalled checking every room she could access, but Tiane was nowhere to be found. That's when panic set in. Tiane wasn't answering her phone, and this behavior was completely out of character. Something wasn't right. Cheryl searched the campus for nearly 2 hours before contacting campus police to report her daughter missing. Instead of help, she was dismissed. Police suggested that Tiane was probably out partying. But Tiane wasn't a freshman. She was a 33-year-old third-year law student, a single mother of 3, and it was a Monday. Desperate, Cheryl went to multiple police departments begging for help, but no one would take action. By the next day, word of Tiane's disappearance spread through Wayne State. Her classmates and professors joined the search, knowing she would never simply disappear. Investigators later confirmed that Tiane had made it to campus. She was last seen around 8:15 p.m. in the library where she was taking an online test. At 11 p.m., she logged out of her computer. After that, there were no reported sightings. Surveillance cameras at the library could have provided answers, but they weren't working that night. Police released a statement saying there was no evidence of foul play, calling the situation unusual given Tiane's age, family responsibilities, and academic standing. Still, they maintained there were no signs of a crime. Her family and friends didn't agree. For the next 2 days, they searched Detroit for any sign of Tiane or her SUV. Flyers were distributed across campus, alerts were shared on Facebook, and pleas for help spread online. Yet it was as if Tiane had vanished without a trace. Less than 48 hours after she was reported missing, the family's worst fears were realized. On October 30, police received a call that a Chevy Trailblazer had been found behind a vacant factory, concealed by trees. Inside the vehicle was Tiane Brown. She had been shot in the head. Tiane was found in the driver's seat, slumped forward over the dashboard, still strapped into her seatbelt. Cheryl learned of the discovery not from the police, but from a friend who called after seeing the news report announcing that Tiane's car had been found. Nina, Tiane's oldest daughter, later recalled that devastating day during an interview with Crime Watch Daily. She remembered the police calling her grandmother and asking her to come down to the station. When they arrived, officers took Cheryl and her husband upstairs, while Nina was told to wait downstairs. Just minutes later, Nina heard her grandmother scream. In that moment, she knew her mother was dead. She said she immediately felt alone. At just 14 years old, Nina and her sisters lost their entire world in an instant. Detectives told Cheryl that 2 homeless men had reported finding Tiane's vehicle and led police to it on October 30. At that point, all investigators knew was that Tiane had been murdered. News of her death spread quickly across the Wayne State University campus, shocking students and faculty alike. Learning that a fellow student had been murdered, possibly after leaving campus, left many afraid. For Tiane's family, the loss was devastating, especially for Nina. While Tiane's younger daughters were too young to fully understand what had happened, Nina understood exactly how much her life had changed. Tiane was the last person anyone expected to become a victim of violence. She lived a quiet, unproblematic life, according to those who knew her. That made the questions even harder to answer. Why was she killed? And why was her car hidden behind an abandoned building? 2 days after Tiane's body was discovered, investigators announced a break in the case. The 2 homeless men who had led police to her vehicle were arrested. Detectives revealed that after finding Tiane's body, they traced her missing cell phone, which led them back to the two men. Police said the men had taken her phone and money before reporting the vehicle. They were charged with tampering with evidence, larceny, receiving stolen property, and concealing stolen property. However, they denied any involvement in Tiane's murder and were not charged in connection with her death. Despite this development, investigators initially believed the case could be solved quickly. Even in a city with a high number of homicides, Tiane's murder stood out. But weeks passed, and police were unable to connect the two men to the killing. They remained persons of interest, but no evidence tied them to the murder. Very little information was released publicly, and investigators appeared to have few leads. It's unclear what evidence was recovered from the scene, but whatever they had was not leading to a suspect. If the men were telling the truth, then robbery was not the motive. When Tiane was found, her seatbelt was still fastened, and her shoes were off, details that suggested she may have known her killer. Police also learned that Tiane's cell phone had pinged on Detroit's east side before her murder, but Cheryl said she didn't know anyone her daughter knew in that area. Soon, the trail went cold. Almost 2 months later, in December 2014, detectives released new information, identifying two men seen on surveillance footage using Tiane's credit card at a gas station convenience store the day her body was found. Police said the men had information that could help the investigation, but they did not explain their connection to the case or identify them publicly. Investigators believed Tiane knew her killer, so they questioned people close to her, including her ex-husband, Toriano, and the father of her youngest child. During the investigation, detectives learned that Tiane had previously requested 3 protection orders against Toriano, claiming he had hit her and threatened to kill her. All 3 orders were eventually dropped. Toriano told Crime Watch Daily that by the time Tiane was murdered, they were in a good place. Police questioned him and administered a lie detector test, but the results were inconclusive. Detectives said Toriano was cooperative and stated they did not believe he was involved. Cheryl also said she did not believe he had anything to do with her daughter's death. When Tiane was first murdered, investigators and her family hoped the case would be solved quickly. But weeks turned into months, and the investigation stalled. Crime Stoppers offered a $2,500 reward, later increasing it to $10,000, but it didn't bring answers. In 2014, Cheryl and her husband spoke with ABC7 in Detroit. Cheryl was now raising her granddaughters and trying to stay strong for them. The family continued pleading for someone to come forward with information. As the years passed, the case grew colder. The 2 men arrested for stealing Tiane's phone were never linked to her murder, and the men seen using her credit card were never identified. In 2017, police told ABC7 that tips had slowed but were still coming in. Detectives said they had developed more than one suspect but did not share details. That same year, Cheryl said she feared she might never see justice. She questioned whether she would even live long enough to get answers. As of today, no one has been arrested or charged in connection with Tiane Brown's murder. Police say the case remains open, but they still need the public's help. Investigators believe whoever killed Tiane was someone she knew and trusted. In 2021, Cheryl made a public plea, saying the pain never goes away and questioning whether there was something she could have done differently. Tiane Brown was found dead inside her 2008 Chevy Trailblazer on October 30, 2013, in Detroit, Michigan. She was last seen 2 days earlier at Wayne State University. Nearly 13 years later, her family is still waiting for justice. If you have any information about what happened to Tiane Brown or who is responsible for her murder, please contact the Detroit Police Department. May Tiane Brown rest in peace. Thank you for listening to Real Crime Stories. Share your thoughts on the story, like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next episode when we bring you more stories, stay vigilant.